The stars gleamed in cold silence as the Artemis Dawn slid out of the fold stream and into the Carthos system. From the forward observation deck, Captain Elena Mayak watched as the endless night of space fractured into light. The great gas giant Carthos shimmered with golden rings, and further out, its third moon burned with volcanic fury. But all eyes on the ship turned toward the pale blue jewel that hung serenely in orbit around the sun, Carthos Prime, a garden world that had been a dream for settlers for more than 2 decades. Elena clasped her hands behind her back, posture rigid. A seasoned officer, she had seen countless planetary approaches, but Carthos Prime stirred something in her chest that was not quite pride and not quite dread. Perhaps it was the silence. A colony world should have been broadcasting waves of chatter, distress beacons, trade reports, joyous messages to Earth. Yet the ship's communications officer had reported only routine signals, all strangely clipped, efficient, and impersonal. "They look like model citizens down there," said Lieutenant Marcus Hale, stepping up beside her. He was the security officer, tall and broad-shouldered, the kind of man who seemed carved from stone and steel. His eyes were sharp as blades, scanning the settlement grids displayed on the glass. Perfect harvests, perfect energy outputs, perfect population stability. If I did not know better, I would call it a statistical miracle. Dr. Samuel Ivers joined them, adjusting his spectacles as though the gesture could bring clarity to the data scrolling across his console. "Miracles are rare, Lieutenant. In medicine, they are often illusions hiding disease. Stability on a frontier colony is unnatural. There are always fluctuations, illnesses, shortages, unrest." He frowned. "Here there is nothing but clean numbers." Nadia Kwan, the youngest member of the bridge crew, leaned forward at her engineering station, her black hair tied in a loose knot that threatened to fall apart with every movement. "The energy grid is clean, too clean. They are producing a surplus with no wasted output, no fluctuations at all. Even a perfect system has noise. This one is too quiet." Elena let their words settle over her like the dust of ancient bones. She had learned long ago that silence could be more dangerous than noise. Silence was a predator crouched in the dark. "Prepare for descent," she ordered. "We will not assume danger where there may be none, but remain cautious. We are guests here, and guests should be wary of houses that appear too clean." The descent through atmosphere was smooth, the Artemis Dawn cutting through high clouds streaked with silver. Carthos Prime stretched below them, lush forests rolling into fertile plains where the colony sprawled. From the air, the settlement looked like a painting, domed structures glistening in the sun, agricultural fields stretching in precise patterns, irrigation canals shimmering like veins of crystal. Colonists gathered at the landing zone, waving banners of welcome. Their faces were smiling, but their movements were measured, almost synchronized, as though some invisible conductor guided their cheer. As the ramp lowered, warm air swept inside, carrying the scent of soil and flowering plants. Elena descended first, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. A delegation approached, led by a man in a pale blue uniform with silver embroidery. His smile was wide, his handshake firm, but his eyes lingered too long, as if studying rather than greeting. "Welcome to Carthos Prime, Captain Mayak," he said. "I am Governor Elias Rainan. We are honored to host the crew of the Artemis Dawn. Your arrival marks a new chapter in the prosperity of our colony." Elena inclined her head politely. "We are grateful for your welcome. Earth has been eager to hear news of your progress. Your reports show remarkable stability." "Prosperity is our gift," Rainan replied smoothly. His teeth were very white, and his smile did not falter. "Here there is no want, no unrest, no sickness. Carthos Prime is the promise of humanity fulfilled." Behind Elena, Dr. Ivers murmured just loud enough for her to hear. "No sickness? Impossible." Governor Rainan gestured for them to follow. As they walked through the settlement, the colonists cheered, but the cheer was uniform, voices rising and falling in eerie harmony. Children waved with identical timing, each laugh echoing another. Elena felt the hairs at the back of her neck stiffen. The colony itself was pristine. No cracks in the domes, no weeds between stone paths, no stains on walls. Every colonist they passed looked robust, strong, and content, yet their eyes lingered on the newcomers with an intensity that seemed less like curiosity and more like scrutiny. Inside the governor's hall, the delegation was offered food and drink. Platters of fruits and roasted meats gleamed under crystal lights. Elena studied the colonists as they ate, every movement neat, every bite identical. Even their gestures of politeness mirrored one another as though choreographed. When the formalities ended, Elena requested to tour the colony's medical facilities. Raynon hesitated a fraction too long before agreeing. Of course, he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. The medical center was spotless, its wards empty. Machines gleamed with polish, beds neatly arranged, shelves fully stocked. Yet there were no patients, not one. Dr. Ivers frowned deeply as he inspected the equipment. "Governor, where are your sick and injured?" "We have none," Raynon said. "Our people are healthy." "That is impossible," Ivers pressed. "Every community, no matter how stable, has injuries. Accidents, childbirth complications, infections." "Not here," Raynon interrupted, his tone final. His gaze fixed on Ivers with an intensity that made the physician step back. "Here we are whole." Later that night, as the crew of the Artemis Dawn settled into guest quarters, Elena gathered her officers for a private meeting. The room was small, its walls too clean, its silence pressing against their ears. "This place is wrong," Marcus Hale said bluntly, leaning against the wall with arms crossed. "The smiles are masks, the numbers are too perfect, and their governor has the eyes of a man guarding secrets." Dr. Ivers tapped the table, restless. "I examined one of their physicians." His hands bore faint tremors, his pupils dilated unnaturally when questioned. He avoided eye contact. "There is something neurological at work here." Nadia frowned. "Their energy grid is broadcasting frequencies that should not be there. Tiny fluctuations, almost rhythmic. It is not random noise. It feels alive." Elena listened to them all, her mind weighing each piece of unease. She had trusted her crew through battles and storms. Their instincts rarely failed. "Tomorrow," she said at last, "we investigate discreetly. We will request access to agricultural records, energy logs, and medical archives. If there is something hidden here, it will leave traces." "And if it is worse than we think?" Marcus asked. Elena's voice hardened. "Then we do what humanity has always done. We endure, we resist, and we do not abandon our own." As silence fell, a faint sound drifted through the vents, a whispering chorus, too faint to make out, like voices speaking in a language that was not meant for human throats. The crew exchanged glances, each face pale in the dim light. No one spoke of it, but they all knew Carthos Prime was not the paradise it claimed to be. Something watched them, something hidden beneath the perfection, and it was patient. The dawn on Carthos Prime rose warm and golden, spilling over the colony's domes and fields in gentle waves of light. Birds with emerald wings flitted between crystalline branches, their songs harmonizing in a way that felt rehearsed. From her guest quarters, Captain Elena Mayak watched the settlement wake. Colonists emerged in perfect order, heading to fields, workshops, or classrooms. No one lingered, no one strayed, no one faltered. It was efficiency elevated to art, and it unsettled her more than chaos ever could. She dressed quickly and met her crew in the hall. Dr. Samuel Ivers carried his portable diagnostic kit slung across his shoulder, his eyes already shadowed by sleeplessness. Marcus Hale looked grim, hand resting near his holstered sidearm, as though danger might step out from behind every corner. Nadia Kwan looked tired but restless, tapping her fingers against the wall in a rhythm only she could hear. They walked to the colony's central plaza, where Governor Elias Raynon greeted them with that same impeccable smile. His words flowed like honey. "We have prepared schedules for your visit. You will see our schools, our energy facilities, our hydroponics labs. I believe you will find them most impressive." Elena returned his smile with a practiced one of her own. "We are eager to see your successes. Dr. Ivers has asked to tour your medical archives, and Engineer Quan will review your energy systems. Lieutenant Hale and I will accompany you to the schools and farms. Raynan's expression flickered just for a breath before returning to smooth perfection. Of course, all our records are open to you. We have nothing to hide. Yet when they parted ways, Elena noticed colonists watching every step. Their gazes followed her crew, unblinking, as though calculating each breath. Dr. Ivers entered the medical archive with two of the colony's physicians. The archive's glowing panels displayed endless rows of flawless records. No infant mortality, no chronic illnesses, no injuries more serious than a scraped knee. It should have been cause for celebration. Instead, his stomach churned. "May I examine some of your patients?" he asked carefully. "Routine examinations, of course. A visiting physician may offer insight." The physicians exchanged glances before nodding. They brought in several volunteers, all smiling, all eager to please. The first subject was a farmer, tall and broad. His handshake was firm, but Ivers noted the pulse beneath the wrist was strangely irregular, 3 beats, a pause, then a rapid flutter before resuming normal rhythm. He frowned and ran his scanner along the man's spine. The screen lit with faint anomalies, clusters of foreign tissue coiled near the nervous system, too symmetrical to be tumors, too active to be scars. "Do you feel well?" Ivers asked, masking his alarm. "Better than well," the man replied, his eyes glassy with conviction. "I feel whole. I feel guided." Ivers's fingers tightened around his scanner. Guided, not healthy, guided. The second subject, a teacher, displayed the same irregular pulse, the same clusters of tissue, the same serene smile. By the third, Ivers knew. Whatever it was not natural. Meanwhile, Nadia Quan trailed a colony engineer through the energy grid's central hub. The facility hummed with quiet power, conduits glowing softly beneath transparent floors. Everything was immaculate, almost too immaculate. Machines that should have borne scratches from use looked newly forged. She bent over a terminal, fingers darting across keys. Energy patterns scrolled across the screen, and there, hidden deep, she found a pulsing signature, not mechanical noise, not random fluctuation, a rhythm steady as a heartbeat. She narrowed her eyes, isolating the signal. It was faint but unmistakable, a broadcast. "What is this channel?" she asked. The colony engineer hesitated. For the first time, the mask of perfection cracked, just slightly. "Maintenance frequency," he said too quickly. "Nothing unusual." Nadia tilted her head, her voice light but her eyes sharp. "Then you will not mind if I copy the data for comparison." The engineer smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Of course. When she left, she felt the gaze of half a dozen workers following her every step. Elena and Marcus Hale visited the farms with Governor Raynan. Fields of grain swayed in perfect alignment, every stalk tall and full. Children worked beside adults, but their laughter was subdued, precise, as though permitted only at intervals. A farmer approached, his hands thick with calluses. He bowed his head respectfully. "Governor, we have harvested an additional 12% this season. The soil sings beneath us." "The soil sings," echoed another farmer from the next row, word for word. Marcus shifted uneasily, his hand brushing the hilt of his weapon. Elena caught the movement and stilled him with a glance. "Governor," she said, her voice calm but probing, "your colony's harmony is extraordinary. But tell me, what challenges do you face? Surely there must be setbacks. Storms, pests, disagreements among your people." Raynan's smile was thin. "We have transcended such trials. Unity overcomes all. We no longer waste ourselves on conflict or doubt." Marcus muttered under his breath, just loud enough for Elena to hear, "Unity looks an awful lot like slavery." That night, the crew gathered again in their quarters. The walls seemed to listen as much as they contained. Dr. Ivers spread his scans across the table. Foreign tissue along the nervous systems of at least 3 subjects. Symmetrical growth, active neural activity. Not disease, not tumor, something external, and they are aware of it. They claim to feel guided. Nadia slid her data beside his. "The energy grid is broadcasting a frequency. It is faint, but rhythmic, like a signal. It matches the irregular pulses Dr. Ivers recorded. I think the colony's entire infrastructure is part of it. Marcus slammed a hand against the table. So it is not just disease. It is control. Something in them is directing their every move. Elena studied the evidence, her expression hardening. If this is true, then Carthos Prime is no longer merely a colony, it is a host. The words fell heavy in the silence. Can it be cured? Marcus asked, his voice low. Ivers hesitated. I do not know. Whatever it has integrated deeply. Removal may kill the host. But leaving it untouched means surrendering them entirely. Nadia leaned forward, her eyes sharp with determination. We need to know the source. If the grid is broadcasting, it must be receiving from somewhere. If we can find the origin, we may understand what we are dealing with. Marcus's jaw tightened, and if we find it, we destroy it. No, Elena said firmly, not yet. These are still human beings, Marcus. We do not kill our own unless we have no other choice. First we learn, then we act. The whispering sound returned through the vents, clearer this time, a susurrus of voices overlapping in eerie harmony. Nadia stiffened. That is not static, it is language. Elena felt the chill settle into her bones. Then we are not dealing with disease. We are dealing with something that speaks. The next day, a research team ventured into the forested hills beyond the colony. They had reported odd vibrations beneath the soil, as though something vast pulsed below. When night fell and no word came back, Marcus demanded to lead a rescue party. Not without proof, Elena cautioned. Proof will not matter if they are already dead, he shot back. Elena studied his face, then nodded. Take Nadia and Dr. Ivers, I will accompany you. The forest closed around them, branches weaving overhead like cathedral arches. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of sap and soil. As they descended into a ravine, the earth trembled faintly beneath their boots. Nadia paused, pressing a scanner to the ground. There is something beneath us, large structures. Hollow spaces, and the same frequency as the grid, stronger here. They pressed onward, lanterns casting thin light. At last they found a cave mouth, its walls glistening with a substance that was not stone. Flesh-like, veined with faint light, it seemed to breathe with a rhythm too deliberate to be natural. Marcus drew his weapon. Tell me that is not alive. Dr. Ivers whispered, it is alive. And it is growing. From deep within, a sound echoed, not the whisper of vents, but a chorus rising in unison. Voices, human and yet not, speaking in harmony. We are one, we are whole, we are waiting. Elena raised her lantern, her heart steady despite the chill racing through her veins. For the first time, she stared directly into the abyss and saw its truth. The colony was not merely infected. It was consumed, and the hunger was still spreading. The cave swallowed them in silence after the chorus faded. The air was damp, charged with something more than humidity, as if the stone itself carried a pulse. Lantern light caught on walls slick, with a translucent substance that shimmered faintly, veins of pale light running through it. It looked disturbingly like living tissue stretched thin over bone. Captain Elena Mayak motioned for the others to follow her deeper. Marcus Hale moved at her flank, weapon raised, every step steady but tense. Dr. Samuel Ivers kept scanning the walls with his portable kit, his mouth tightening with every new reading. Nadia Kwan brought up the rear, her scanner connected to a shoulder rig, lines of data spilling across her visor. There are signatures down here, Nadia whispered. Dozens of life forms, maybe more. They are not moving, but they are alive. Colonists? Elena asked. Nadia hesitated. Some might be, but the rest, not human. The tunnel widened into a chamber. At first glance, it looked like a natural grotto, but the longer they stared, the more it shifted into something grotesque. The walls bulged in rounded pods, each one half-transparent, containing figures suspended in viscous fluid. Human figures. Elena stepped closer, lifting her lantern. One of the colonists floated in the pod, eyes closed, mouth slack. The body twitched faintly, not in panic, but in rhythm, like a sleeper breathing in time with some hidden metronome. Veins of light ran from the pod into the floor, spreading outward like roots. Dr. Ivers pressed his scanner against the pod's surface. His face went pale. They are alive. Brain activity is unusual. synchronized with the pulses running through these walls. It is as if their nervous systems have been threaded into a larger network. Marcus muttered a curse under his breath. They are not people anymore, they are batteries. No, Ivers snapped, his voice sharp with conviction. They are still alive, which means they can still be saved. Before Marcus could argue, a noise stirred deeper in the chamber, a scraping sound, wet and deliberate. From the shadows, figures began to emerge. They were colonists, but wrong. Their skin was pale and clammy, veins faintly luminous. Their eyes reflected the lantern light with an unnatural sheen. They moved in unsettling unison, their steps falling in perfect time. "Do not shoot unless they attack," Elena ordered quickly. "We need to know what they are." The infected colonists halted several paces away, standing shoulder to shoulder in a line. Their mouths opened, and a single voice emerged, layered across many throats. "You should not be here." The words were flat, resonant, stripped of individuality. Elena held her ground. "We are here for our people. Release them." "They are us," the chorus replied. "They are home. They are safe." Dr. Ivers stepped forward, voice trembling with both fear and resolve. "This is not safety. This is subjugation. You are taking away their minds." The infected tilted their heads in eerie unison. "We give them peace. No fear, no doubt, no pain. They are whole." Nadia's hands shook around her scanner, her voice breaking the silence. "Captain, the signal is spiking. The hive is aware of us. It knows we are here." The infected advanced a step, and Marcus's finger tightened on his trigger. "Permission to fire, Captain." "Hold," Elena said firmly, but the infected did not stop. Their pace quickened, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. When the first one lunged, Marcus fired. The blast tore through its chest, sending it staggering back, but the colonist did not fall. Instead, it rose again, moving forward as if pulled by unseen strings. "Retreat," Elena ordered. "Back to the tunnel." They fought their way backward, Marcus firing controlled bursts that slowed but did not stop the infected. The chamber filled with echoing footsteps and the unnerving chorus of many voices speaking as one. "You cannot resist. You are not whole." Nadia stumbled, her scanner clattering to the floor. One of the infected lunged toward her, hands clawing. Marcus intercepted with a brutal strike of his rifle butt, shoving the colonist back. Elena grabbed Nadia by the arm and pulled her upright. "Move," Elena shouted. They reached the mouth of the tunnel, lantern beams cutting through darkness. The infected stopped just short of the threshold, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders. Then, as one, they spoke. "You will join us soon. The hunger cannot be denied." The voices faded, and the figures retreated into the chamber. The crew pressed on until daylight pierced the tunnel mouth, each breath ragged with exhaustion. When they emerged into the forest, the world seemed too bright, too normal. Birds still sang, and the wind still rustled the leaves, but every sound carried an undertone now, a reminder that something vast and unseen lurked below. Back in their quarters, the crew argued late into the night. Marcus slammed his weapon down on the table. "I do not care what you call them. They are gone. Whatever those things were, they are not people anymore. You saw them take bullets like it was nothing. You saw their eyes." Dr. Ivers leaned forward, his voice fierce. "And I saw their brain scans. I saw activity that was still human. The parasite has not destroyed them. It has overridden them. They are still alive in there, Marcus. That means they can be saved." "They nearly tore Nadia apart," Marcus shot back. "They nearly tore us apart," Elena interjected, her voice calm but edged with steel. "But we are alive, which means we can still fight. And if there is even a chance those colonists can be freed, we do not write them off." Nadia finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "The signal was strongest in that chamber. That means it is a hub, not the source. The parasite is deeper, larger. Whatever it is spread through the ground itself. If we want to stop it, we have to go to its heart." Elena nodded slowly. "Then that is what we will do. But first, we gather proof. If we are to fight this thing, the rest of humanity must believe us. We will not let Cartho's prime fall in silence." The following morning, Governor Raynon summoned them to his hall. He greeted them with the same perfect smile, but Alina noticed his hands trembling faintly as he poured their drinks. His voice was smooth, but beneath it lurked a tremor of strain. "You have been exploring places that are not part of the tour," he said casually. "The caves, for example." Alina met his gaze steadily. "We are investigators, Governor. It is our duty to understand the colony fully. Some truths," Raynon said softly, "are not meant to be disturbed. We are building paradise here. Why would you seek to ruin it?" Marcus leaned forward, voice sharp as a blade. "Paradise built on slavery is no paradise at all." Raynon's smile faltered just briefly before settling back into place. "You will see in time. You will understand the gift, and you will accept it." His eyes lingered on each of them in turn, and for a moment Alina saw something flicker there, not humanity, not individuality, but a shadow that moved independently of the man himself. The parasite was not just beneath the ground. It was here, in their leaders, wearing their faces, speaking through their mouths. The colony was not only infected, it was compromised at every level, and the Artemis Dawn crew was already caught in its gaze. The colony of Carthos Prime went about its days in flawless order, but to the crew of the Artemis Dawn, every smile had become a mask, every laugh a rehearsed echo. What once appeared as harmony now reeked of control. Captain Alina Mayek stood at the edge of the plaza, her eyes following the movements of colonists as they filed to their work. She watched a group of children chase each other across a field, their steps identical, their laughter timed to the same rhythm. It was as if the joy had been copied and pasted from one to another, an echo instead of an expression. Dr. Samuel Ivers joined her, his expression grim. "They are not just sick, Alina, they are integrated. The parasite does not kill them, it rewrites them. And yet they still look like people," Alina replied. "That is the worst of it. How do you fight something that wears the faces of those you came to protect?" Before Ivers could answer, a chill swept over the plaza. Conversations hushed. Colonists turned their heads in eerie unison, their gazes fixed on the new arrivals. Alina felt her chest tighten as silence fell. A woman stepped forward. She was young, no older than 20, her hair braided neatly, her eyes bright. But when she spoke, her voice was not her own. It was layered, resonant, a chorus bound into one throat. "We have watched you, we have tasted your fear. You struggle against what is inevitable." Marcus Hale's hand shot to his weapon, but Alina stilled him with a glance. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice carrying across the silent plaza. The woman tilted her head, her smile serene. "We are the many. We are the silence beneath your feet. We are the unity you have always sought but never achieved. We are the end of loneliness." Dr. Ivers stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You are a parasite. You steal will, you erase identity." The colonists' chorus voice deepened. "We preserve, we perfect. Every mind is carried, never lost. Every memory is eternal. No more fear, no more death." "You mean no more freedom," Alina said coldly. "Freedom is pain, doubt, division. You fight wars against yourselves, you let your people starve, you leave them to die in sickness and solitude. We end all that, we make you whole." The words slithered into the silence, tempting, insidious. Alina felt a flicker of unease, not because she believed the parasite, but because she knew others might. A world without loneliness, without hunger, without fear. To a weary settler, it could sound like salvation. She stood tall. "Humanity is not whole because of sameness. We are whole because of choice. Without it, you are nothing but an echo chamber." The colonists smiled faintly. "You will see, you will join, all of you, the hunger is patient." And then the woman blinked. Her eyes cleared for the briefest instant. Her lips trembled. "Help me," she whispered, raw and terrified. Before Ivers could reach her, the chorus voice returned, smothering her own. The crowd dispersed as though nothing had happened. Work resumed. Laughter rose again, identical as before. Alina exhaled slowly. "We have seen its face now, and it knows ours." That evening, the crew locked themselves in their quarters, every vent sealed, every recorder active. Nadia spread her data across the table, her fingers dancing rapidly as she constructed a model. The parasite uses resonance to synchronize the nervous systems of its hosts. The patterns in the energy grid amplify it, making the colony itself a transmitter. That is why the voices carry across so many people at once. So they are puppets, Marcus muttered. Nadia shook her head. Not puppets. Amplifiers. The host is still there, buried under the parasite's signal. I picked up faint anomalies during the transmission, flashes of independent thought trying to break through, like when that woman begged for help. Ivers leaned forward, seizing on her words. So they are not lost. The parasite rides their nervous systems like a current, but if we disrupt the signal, then the host might re-emerge, Nadia finished. Her eyes brightened with a dangerous spark of possibility. I can build a scanner tuned to the parasite's resonance. It will let us detect who is infected, and maybe, just maybe, we can interrupt the link. Marcus snorted. And what if your interruption just kills them outright? Nadia bristled. Then at least we will know the cost. But I will not stand here and declare them dead when we can still hear them screaming inside. Elena raised a hand, silencing the brewing argument. Do it. Build your scanner. If there is a chance to save even one colonist, we take it. But we must be discreet. The parasite is watching us. Over the next days, Nadia worked tirelessly in the engineering bay of the Artemis Dawn. She scavenged components from the ship's comm systems, coupling them with colony hardware smuggled under cover of night. Her eyes grew hollow from lack of sleep, but her movements were precise, driven by the fire of invention. Dr. Ivers assisted, calibrating biological readings against the resonance output. Marcus Hale stood guard at the door, his weapon never far from reach. On the third night, the device hummed to life. A handheld scanner, its screen glowing faint green, tuned to pick up the faint electromagnetic whispers of the parasite. Nadia grinned faintly despite her exhaustion. It works, at least in theory. Let us test it, Elena said. They took the scanner to the marketplace the next morning. The plaza bustled with colonists trading goods, their voices rising in perfect harmony. Nadia passed the scanner over the crowd. One after another, the screen lit with faint pulses. Infected, everywhere. One colonist stood clear, the screen showing nothing. He was an older man, his posture bent, his eyes weary. He glanced at the crew nervously before slipping into an alley. Elena motioned for the others to follow. They found him huddled against the wall, his hands trembling. You are not one of them, he whispered. Neither are you, Elena said softly. The man's eyes darted fearfully. They hear everything, they see everything. If I speak too loudly, they will know. They already know too much. Ivers crouched beside him. Tell us. What happened here? The man swallowed hard, his voice breaking. It came from the ground, first in the caves, then in the soil, then in the air. It spoke to us in dreams. People disappeared. Then they came back different, smiling, always smiling. Those who resisted were taken below. I hid. I have been hiding ever since. Nadia held up the scanner. We can see who is infected. We are trying to stop it. The man's face crumpled with desperate hope. Then stop it quickly, before it swallows everything, before it swallows me. A sudden chill passed through the alley. Shadows thickened. The man's eyes widened. They know, his words cut off in a strangled cry. He stiffened, his body convulsing. His pupils dilated, glowing faintly. When he spoke again, it was no longer his voice. You cannot hide them. You cannot resist. Every whisper is heard. Every thought is ours. Elena drew her sidearm, but Ivers grabbed her wrist. No, he is still in there. The man's body lurched forward with unnatural strength, striking Marcus hard enough to send him crashing into the wall. The chorus poured from his mouth, laughter layered across countless voices. Nadia slammed the scanner against his chest. The device emitted a piercing tone, a counter-resonance tuned to the parasite's frequency. The man shrieked, his body convulsing. For an instant, the glow in his eyes dimmed. Help me, he gasped, his own voice breaking through. Please. And then he collapsed, unconscious but breathing. The crew stared at the scanner, its glow steady. For the first time, they had fought the parasite and won. Dr. Ivers's voice shook with awe. He came back. He was still alive inside. We can reach them. Elena exhaled, her grip steady on her weapon. Then this is our weapon, not bullets, not fire, resonance. We will fight them mind for mind, voice for voice. Nadia tightened her grip on the scanner, her exhaustion burning into resolve. Then let us build more. Above them, the colony bustled on as if nothing had happened, but in the shadows, the parasites stirred. It had seen their defiance. It had felt its control fracture, and for the first time, it was not patient. The man they had pulled back from the parasite's grip lay in the infirmary of the Artemis Dawn. His chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, sweat beading on his brow. Dr. Samuel Ivers checked his vitals for the 5th time, his scanner moving in careful arcs over the man's nervous system. The parasite's clusters still lingered there, but dormant, weakened by the counter-resonance. "He is alive," Ivers said, more to himself than anyone else. Not just alive, himself. The parasite is still present, but muted. The resonance interrupts the link. Nadia slumped into a chair, her fingers stained with grease from building a second scanner. "So we can weaken it, maybe even push it back. If we scale this up, we might free more of them." Marcus Hale stood near the doorway, arms folded, his gaze sharp. "Or we might rile it up and make things worse. One man saved does not mean the colony can be saved. Sometimes a wound festers too long to heal. You cut it away before it spreads." Dr. Ivers snapped his head up. "These are not limbs, Marcus. These are people, people who still fight inside their own heads." "They attacked us," Marcus retorted, voice hard. "They nearly killed Nadia. They nearly killed all of us. If you had seen what I saw in those tunnels, those husks strung up like puppets, you would not be so eager to call them people." "They are people," Ivers insisted, fire in his eyes. "That is exactly why they matter." The argument rose in heat until Alina Mayek slammed her palm against the table. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. "Enough," she said, her voice low but commanding. "Both of you are right. The parasite has made weapons of human beings, and that is monstrous. But as long as they are still alive in there, we have a responsibility to try. We do not throw away our own." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he did not argue further. He only muttered, "Responsibility has a body count." Word of the crew's discovery spread quickly, though they had taken every precaution to keep it contained. Colonists whispered in the streets, their eyes following the Artemis Dawn officers with suspicion. Some approached in secret, desperate for salvation. Others turned away, their smiles sharper, their gazes colder. At the governor's hall, a council meeting was convened. Governor Elias Reynan presided at the long crystalline table, his hands folded neatly before him. Behind his polite smile, Elena now saw the faint tremors, the flicker of something alien moving in the shadows of his eyes. "You bring disruption," Reynan said calmly. "You come into our home and spread fear. My people were content. Now they question, they doubt. Doubt leads to suffering. Suffering leads to division." Elena kept her voice steady. "We bring truth. Your colony is not whole, Governor. It is infected, we have proof." She placed Nadia's scanner on the table and activated it. A faint pulse lit the display, tuned to Reynan himself. The governor did not flinch. "Proof of life," he said smoothly. "Proof of unity. The parasite you fear does not kill, it uplifts. It ends the chaos of human weakness. It is a gift." The council erupted in divided voices. Some shouted in agreement with the governor, their faces serene, but their words edged with something not entirely their own. Others, uninfected, still clinging to individuality, demanded protection, begged for the Artemis Dawn to save their families. The chamber fractured into chaos, arguments colliding like storm fronts. "Quarantine them," one shouted. "Kill them before it spreads further," cried another. "They are still our kin, you cannot just destroy them." Marcus's hand went to his weapon more than once as infected colonists advanced, their words eerily synchronized. "We are not the enemy, we are your salvation, do not fear wholeness." Dr. Ivers slammed his fists against the table, his voice cutting through the noise. "You are not salvation, you are theft. You steal minds, you erase souls. Humanity is not meant to be uniform, we are not meant to be swallowed whole." The governor's smile sharpened. "Perhaps you will understand better once you join us." That night, the colony seethed with division. Some barricaded their homes, fearful of their own neighbors. Others welcomed the parasite openly, gathering in circles to chant in low, resonant voices. The streets became a battlefield of whispers and stares, not yet physical violence, but on the brink. The crew of the Artemis Dawn met again in the war room aboard their ship. Maps of the colony sprawled across the display table, marked with energy flows and suspected infection hubs. Nadia tapped a glowing point deep beneath the settlement. This is the largest concentration. The signal from the caves connects here through underground conduits. I think this is the hive's central node. So we destroy it, Marcus said without hesitation. No, Ivers countered. If we sever it too abruptly, the hosts may die. We need a way to separate the parasite from the people, not annihilate both together. Every hour we wait, it spreads, Marcus argued. Every hour, more colonists vanish into those tunnels. At some point, mercy becomes suicide. Elena pressed her palms against the table, her voice calm but unyielding. We find a balance. We strike at the parasite, but we do not abandon the colonists. Nadia, expand your scanner into a disruptor. I want something strong enough to weaken the hive without killing the hosts. Nadia nodded, already sketching designs in her mind. Marcus exhaled sharply, turning away. One day you will have to choose, Captain, them or us, and when that day comes, mercy will get us all killed. Elena looked at him, her eyes steady as steel. And when that day comes, Marcus, I will make the choice, not you. The next morning, half the colony gathered outside the governor's hall. The crowd split into two tides, those who demanded the Artemis Dawn save them, and those who marched with glassy eyes, chanting in perfect unison. The air was electric with tension. Children clung to their parents. Farmers carried makeshift weapons. And above it all, the governor stood on the steps, his voice amplified through the parasite's rhythm. There is nothing to fear. The strangers bring only division. They will leave, and we will remain, together, whole. A stone flew from the crowd, striking one of the infected in the temple. The colonist did not flinch. Blood trickled down his face, but his smile did not waver. The infected surged forward, not in anger but in unison, a wave of bodies moving as one. Panic erupted. Screams split the air. The uninfected scattered, some fleeing, others fighting. The first clash of human against human had begun. Elena and her crew pushed through the chaos, trying to separate combatants, trying to pull the vulnerable to safety. But it was impossible to tell where parasite ended and human began. A mother cradled her child with one hand and swung a blade with the other. A farmer's eyes glowed faintly even as he cried out in his own voice for help. Dr. Ivers's voice cut through the din, ragged with anguish. They are all still inside. Every blow we strike kills one of our own. Marcus fired into the ground, scattering the nearest infected, but his eyes were grim. Then tell me, Doctor, how do we fight a war where every enemy wears the face of someone you swore to save? Elena's voice rose, firm and unshakable, even above the screams. We fight with our minds. We fight with our will. We do not let them decide who we are. And as she shouted, Nadia's scanner hummed to life, sweeping over the battlefield. The screen lit up with pulses, each infected colonist glowing as a point of resonance. For the first time, the enemy was not invisible. For the first time, they could see what they were fighting. The colony above was tearing itself apart. Shouts, gunfire, and the heavy rhythm of chanting echoed through the settlement streets long into the night. Lanterns burned where barricades were raised, casting jagged shadows across walls streaked with parasite growth. The air carried the stink of sweat, blood, and the faint, metallic tang of infection. But the crew of the Artemis Dawn did not linger above. They prepared to go beneath, to where the heart of the parasite pulsed unseen. In the war room, the maps glowed with threads of pale energy drawn from Nadia Kwan's scans. Each line traced a connection from infected colonists to hidden conduits, from conduits to chambers, and finally down into a cavern vast enough to register as a hollow wound beneath the planet's crust. That is the hive, Nadia said, her finger pressing against the deepest mark. Every signal leads here, every resonance passes through it. If we strike it, the parasite loses its hold. And if it dies, Marcus Hale muttered, we might lose every colonist tied to it, every host. Half the settlement could drop dead at once. Dr. Samuel Ivers stood stiff, his hands gripping the table. Not if we use the disruptor. The resonance can weaken the link without severing it. If we can hold it long enough, we may free them instead of killing them. Marcus shot him a look. You say may like it is certainty, but it is not. It is hope dressed up as strategy. Hope is better than slaughter, Ivers snapped. Elena Mayak silenced them both with a look. This is what we do, we strike at the hive. Nadia, bring the disruptor prototype. Marcus, take full armament. Samuel, prepare medical rigs in case we free anyone down there. We are not here just to fight. We are here to bring them back. Her words settled like steel. No one argued further. The entrance to the underworld waited beyond the forests, where a fissure split the ground like a scar. Lanterns lit their descent, throwing narrow beams across stone slick with parasite growth. The walls pulsed faintly, veins of light crawling downward like rivers of fire. The deeper they went, the more the air thickened with heat and a low, vibrating hum that pressed against their skulls. Marcus adjusted the grip on his rifle. It feels like we are walking into the lungs of something alive. That is not far from the truth, Nadia murmured. She carried the disruptor strapped to her back, its coils faintly glowing, humming in counter-rhythm to the parasite's song. Dr. Ivers ran his scanner along the wall. His face was pale, his voice low. The tissue is thicker here, denser. It is not just growth anymore. This is structure. We are inside its body. The tunnel opened suddenly into a cavern, so vast their lanterns could not reach its edges. The walls curved high above, studded with pods that pulsed with pale light. Human forms floated inside many of them, suspended in viscous fluid, their bodies twitching faintly in rhythm with the hum. The sound pressed harder now, a chorus of whispers vibrating in their skulls. It was not sound alone, but thought bleeding through. You are late. The words resonated inside their minds, not through their ears. The crew staggered at the force of it, hands going to temples as though to shut it out. You resisted longer than most, but resistance is pain, division is pain, we end pain, we bring you wholeness. Elena straightened, her breath ragged but her eyes sharp. You are a parasite, you steal what is not yours, humanity is not yours to consume. The whispers surged, wrapping around her voice. Humanity is fragile, humanity breaks itself, we mend it, we make you one, the chaos of choice ends, the hunger ends. Dr. Ivers staggered forward, clutching his scanner, his voice hoarse. No, you erase choice, you erase the soul, that is not peace, that is annihilation. The cavern walls shuddered, and from the far side, the hive began to move. It was not a single creature, but a mass of them fused together. Limbs and torsos jutted from a central body like branches from a tree, all pulsing with shared light. Human faces flickered in and out of the surface, eyes open, mouths mouthing words without sound. The parasite's core was built of its hosts, merged and woven into its very flesh. Nadia's voice broke in a whisper. My God, it has become a cathedral of bodies. Marcus raised his rifle. Then we burn the cathedral down. The parasite answered with action. From the walls, infected colonists tore free of their pods, their eyes blazing with pale light. They dropped to the ground, landing silently, moving as one. Join us. The first wave rushed forward. Marcus fired, blasts cutting them down, but they rose again, their wounds glowing as the parasite stitched them back together. Elena slashed with her blade, carving through tissue that oozed thick, glowing fluid. Ivers dragged one fallen colonist back, pressing his scanner against the skull. He is alive, he is still there, he shouted. Nadia threw the disruptor into gear. The machine roared, emitting a pulse that rattled their bones. The infected staggered, clutching their heads. For a moment, their movements faltered, eyes flickering as though something human struggled to break through. Keep it running, Elena shouted. The disruptor pulsed again, stronger. Several infected fell to their knees, voices rising in fractured cries, not in unison, but in individual agony. Dr. Ivers knelt beside one, gripping the man's face. Stay with me, fight it, you are not alone. For a heartbeat, the colonist's eyes cleared. His mouth formed a single word. Help, then the parasite surged, the hum rising into a roar that shook the cavern. The walls pulsed violently, pods bursting to release more hosts. The cathedral of bodies at the center writhed, faces twisting, arms reaching outward. You will not unmake us. You will not divide what is whole. The ground shook. A fissure opened beneath their feet, and from it rose something larger than any human form, a construct of flesh and parasite growth, taller than a tower, its limbs bristling with barbed tendrils. Nadia's disruptor whined under the strain. It cannot hold at this intensity for long. If it overloads, it will burn out. Marcus fired into the behemoth, but its wounds closed instantly. He cursed, reloading. "Captain, we are not going to make it out alive unless we cut deeper." Elena stared at the cathedral of bodies, at the faces flickering in agony within. She felt the weight of her choice pressing harder than the hum in her skull. If they destroyed the core outright, the parasite would die, but so might every colonist tied to it. If they tried to disrupt it, they might free some or lose everything in the attempt. The cavern trembled again, parasite growth surging closer like a tidal wave of flesh. Elena lifted her voice above the chaos, sharp as a blade. "We are not your prey, we are not your hive, we are human and we choose our own future." She turned to Nadia. "Push the disruptor, everything it has." Nadia's eyes widened. "If it blows, then it blows," Elena said. "Better to burn than to kneel." Nadia slammed her palm against the controls. The disruptor screamed, light pouring from its coils like a newborn star. The pulse tore through the cavern, through the hosts, through the hive itself. For a moment, everything froze. The infected screamed, their voices split from the chorus, their individuality tearing through the parasite's grip. The cathedral writhed, its faces shifting from serene unity to agonized freedom. And in the echoing silence after the blast, one sound rose above all others. Not the parasite's whispers, not the hive's hum, but the first human cries of the colonists, broken, terrified, and their own. The pulse of the disruptor had shattered the hive's unity. The cavern reverberated with sound, not the parasite's steady hum, but a storm of human cries breaking loose. The hosts staggered and fell, clutching their heads, their voices rising in discord, no longer woven into one. But the hive was not dead. The cathedral of bodies convulsed, its many limbs clawing at the stone, dragging its mass toward the intruders. Its glow had dimmed, but rage burned through every vein. From its core, the parasite's voice struck back, thunderous and broken, no longer smooth unity, but jagged fragments. "You cannot divide us. We are one," the behemoth towering above the fissure roared, tendrils snapping like whips, lashing out across the cavern. Marcus Hale threw himself aside as one carved a furrow in the stone where he had stood. Elena Mayak raised her blade, severing a tendril before it could pierce Dr. Ivers, the ichor spraying in glowing arcs. Nadia Kwan braced the disruptor against the ground, sweat pouring down her face as the machine's coils glowed dangerously. Sparks danced across its frame. "It is burning out," she shouted. "I cannot hold the field stable. Then we push until it breaks," Elena barked back. Dr. Ivers crouched beside one of the fallen colonists, his hands trembling as he scanned the man's vitals. The readings were chaotic, but alive, freed from the hive's rhythm. "It is working," he cried. "They are coming back. If we can hold it just a little longer." The ground shook violently, cutting him off. The cathedral slammed one massive limb into the stone, and the cavern split in a jagged line. A geyser of steaming fluid erupted upward, spraying across the chamber, carrying fragments of bone and tissue. The stench was unbearable. Marcus fired burst after burst into the central mass, but his rifle overheated, smoke hissing from the barrel. "This thing is not dying fast enough." "Then we do not kill it fast enough," Elena growled, eyes blazing. She pointed toward the cathedral's base, where dozens of thick veins pulsed with light, anchoring it to the floor like roots. "We sever it at the heart." She sprinted forward, slashing through tendrils that lashed at her. Marcus cursed and followed, drawing his sidearm. Dr. Ivers grabbed a fallen colonist by the shoulders, dragging him toward Nadia. "Keep him safe," Ivers yelled. "Do not let the parasite reclaim him," the disruptor screamed as Nadia forced its output higher. The cavern pulsed with blinding light, each wave rattling stone and bone alike. Hosts writhed in pain but did not rise. For the first time, silence from the parasite's chorus spread through the chamber, but the machine was tearing itself apart. Coils cracked, metal plates warped, bolts sheared loose and shot across the floor like shrapnel. Nadia grit her teeth, refusing to let go. Elena reached the first of the veins. With a cry, she plunged her blade into it. The ichor exploded outward, glowing strands whipping across her arms like fire. The cathedral shrieked, not in words, but in raw agony. Marcus emptied his pistol into another vein, the pulsing light dimming with every shot. The cathedral's limbs flailed, smashing stone, shattering pods, throwing fragments of bodies to the cavern floor. Dr. Ivers screamed as he was thrown aside by the shockwave. He scrambled back to his feet, blood running down his face, eyes wild. He saw more colonists twitching on the ground, their eyes clearing, their voices breaking into confused sobs. "They are alive, keep fighting," he shouted, though his words were swallowed by the roar of collapsing stone. Elena cut through another vein, ichor spraying across her armor, searing through fabric to her skin. She did not stop. "Nadia, one more pulse. Give me one more." Nadia slammed her fist into the disruptor's control, her body shaking with the effort. The machine shrieked and flared like a star collapsing in on itself. The pulse exploded outward, flooding the cavern with white light. The cathedral convulsed, its faces twisting in torment, its limbs thrashing wildly. The light of its veins dimmed, then flickered out one by one as Elena and Marcus severed the last roots. The parasite's voice returned, fractured and weak. "We are hunger, hunger never dies." The cathedral collapsed inward, crashing to the ground in a mountain of writhing flesh. For a moment, silence filled the cavern, then the disruptor exploded. The blast hurled Nadia backward, the machine tearing itself into glowing shards. A shockwave ripped through the chamber, collapsing the ceiling in thunderous cascades. Stone and parasite flesh rained down, crushing pods and splitting the cavern apart. "Retreat!" Elena screamed, her voice hoarse. She grabbed Nadia by the shoulders, dragging her up. Marcus covered their retreat with his last rounds, blasting apart tendrils still lashing weakly from the dying hive. Dr. Ivers hauled two stumbling colonists to their feet, shoving them toward the tunnel. More survivors staggered after him, coughing, crying, clutching their heads as if waking from a nightmare. The ground split again, and the behemoth rising from the fissure bellowed one last roar, its tendrils flailing wildly. But its light was dim now, its movements sluggish. The disruptor's final blast had gutted it. Elena led the charge up the tunnel, the walls shaking, cracks splitting open as the hive died beneath them. They stumbled into the forest, under a sky bleeding with dawn light. Behind them, the ground heaved, and the entrance collapsed in a thunderous collapse of earth and dust. The hive was buried. The survivors fell to the grass, gasping for air, their eyes wild with confusion and pain. Some clutched their heads and screamed, haunted by memories of being part of the hive. Others simply wept in silence. Nadia coughed violently, blood on her lips, her hands shaking as she tried to rise. Marcus dropped beside her, steadying her with a grim nod. "You did it," he said quietly. "You broke it." Dr. Ivers moved among the survivors, checking pulses, scanning vitals, whispering encouragement. His face was streaked with dirt and blood, but his eyes shone with fierce triumph. "They are free," he whispered. "We saved them." Elena stood apart, her blade still dripping with ichor, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The forest was still, but she knew the battle was not truly over. The parasite was wounded, perhaps even crippled, but its voice had spoken true in one way. Hunger never died. She tightened her grip on the blade. "We won a battle," she murmured to herself, "not the war." The sun had just crested the horizon, its light spilling across the settlement like a quiet benediction. Smoke rose from shattered barricades. The streets were littered with broken weapons, shattered lanterns, and the unconscious bodies of those freed from the hive. The air stank of charred wood, ichor, and blood. The battle beneath the earth had ended, but above ground the consequences had only begun. Captain Elena Mayak stood at the colony's edge, her armor torn and scorched, her blade still sheathed at her side. Her eyes traced the horizon where the fissure had collapsed, burying the hive. The forest swayed in the morning breeze as though nothing unnatural had ever lurked beneath. Behind her the survivors stirred. Nadia Kwan sat propped against a crate, her face pale, her hands shaking from exhaustion. Marcus Hale moved like a sentinel through the crowd, organizing water and blankets, his voice low but commanding. Dr. Samuel Ivers bent over the freed colonists, scanning, checking pulses, whispering soft reassurances. One man sat staring into his hands, trembling. I could hear them, all of them, every thought, every fear, and now it is gone, it is so quiet. A woman beside him wept openly, clutching her head. They used my eyes, I watched through my own eyes, but I could not stop them. They made me walk, they made me hurt people. How do I live with that? Ivers placed a hand on her shoulder. It was not you, it was never you, you were a prisoner. The guilt is theirs, not yours. But his words did little to stem the tears. Later that day, what remained of the colony gathered in the square. The survivors were a fraction of the original population. Some had been consumed by the hive, their bodies now buried beneath the earth. Others had perished in the fighting, victims of both parasite and human crossfire. Captain Alina stood before them, Nadia, Marcus, and Ivers at her side. Her voice carried, steady despite the weariness in her bones. The hive is destroyed, you are free. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, relief, disbelief, suspicion. But the cost was great, Alina continued. We lost many, and we do not yet know if the parasite is gone for good or if it has merely been driven deeper. We cannot take survival for granted. We will rebuild, but we must remain vigilant. A man stepped forward, his face gaunt, his voice raw. You say we are free, but I still feel it. In my bones, in my blood. A whisper at the edge of thought. What if it comes back? What if we are never truly free? Others nodded, murmuring agreement. Fear rippled through the crowd. Dr. Ivers raised his scanner. The parasite's signal is gone. The resonance is broken. You may feel echoes, but they are only memories. What you endured will linger, but the control is broken, I promise you. A woman spat at his feet. You promised before, you told us it was sickness, you told us to be patient. And look where that led. The square erupted in shouts, anger, grief, confusion. Some turned on Ivers, some on Alina, some on each other. Marcus stepped forward, his voice a thunderclap. Enough, the noise faltered. Marcus's gaze swept the crowd, hard and unyielding. You can scream, you can blame, but it will not change what we faced. You are alive because these people stood between you and that hive. You are alive because we fought when the parasite wanted you silent. Do not waste your breath tearing each other apart. Silence spread slowly, grudgingly. Alina took the moment. We are not safe yet, but we are human, and that means we endure, we rebuild, we choose our future, not the hive, not hunger, us. The words carried, though she saw doubt still lingering in many eyes. That night, the crew of the Artemis Dawn gathered alone in what remained of the war room. Lanterns flickered against the walls. The air carried the heavy stillness of exhaustion. Nadia's hands were still trembling. She stared at the table, avoiding their eyes. The disruptor is gone. The schematics burned in the overload. I cannot rebuild it without months of work, maybe longer. If the parasite rises again, we will not have the weapon to fight it. Marcus leaned back, arms crossed, jaw set. Then we make something else. Humans always do. Nadia shook her head. You do not understand. That machine nearly killed us. It broke every safety protocol, pushed energy levels beyond stability. It worked once by miracle or madness, but it may not work again. Dr. Ivers rubbed his face, lines of weariness etched deep. Then we must find another way. If the parasite has survived, it will adapt. If it has adapted, then the next encounter may be worse. The words hung heavy. Alina finally spoke. We cannot fight shadows. We do not know if it lives still, but we prepare, and we carry this warning with us. This world is not alone. If the parasite reached here, it can reach elsewhere. Humanity must know. Nadia looked up, fear flickering in her eyes. Do you think it is on other colonies already? Alina's silence was answer enough. Days passed. The colony buried its dead. Freed hosts wandered the settlement in a haze, some slowly reclaiming themselves, others collapsing into grief and guilt. Children clung to parents who had been strangers in their own bodies, but something else stirred in the quiet. Dr. Ivers noticed it first. A colonist collapsed in the square, seizing violently. His body convulsed, his eyes rolled back, and faint light flickered beneath his skin. Ivers rushed to him, scanning frantically. "No," he whispered. "No, it should not be possible." The man gasped, awake, trembling. "It is still there, I feel it." Ivers pressed a hand against his forehead. "You are not infected, you are free." This is trauma, not the parasite. It cannot be the parasite. But as he said it, he was not certain. That night, Elena dreamed. She stood once more in the cavern, though it was empty now, hollow and dead. The cathedral of bodies was gone, but the walls still pulsed faintly, as though embers smoldered beneath the ash. And then the voice came, not thunderous, not unified, but soft, broken, like a whisper in her ear. "Hunger waits." She jolted awake, her hand on her blade, sweat drenching her skin. The war room was silent but for the creak of cooling metal. She pressed her palm against her temple, breathing hard. The parasite was gone, buried, crippled, and yet she was not sure if she had dreamed it at all. The colony slept uneasily that night. Fires burned low in scattered hearths. Children huddled against parents who still bore the marks of hive control. Freed colonists whispered to one another, their voices tremulous, uncertain, haunted by memories that were no longer theirs alone. Above ground, the forest swayed gently in the night breeze, but for those who had ventured underground, the wind carried a subtle hum, faint, persistent, almost like a heartbeat. Captain Elena Mayak paced the Artemis Dawn's quarters, the blade sheathed at her side. Her eyes kept drifting to the horizon where the fissure had collapsed. Beneath that scarred earth lay the remains of the hive, a vast network of flesh and consciousness. She tried to imagine it as dead, inert, defeated, but a whisper of doubt clung to her like smoke. Dr. Samuel Ivers was at the table, scanning the vitals of freed colonists once more. "Something is wrong," he muttered. He tapped his scanner repeatedly, each reading flickering faint pulses. "I thought we severed the link entirely, but these readings, there's residual activity, tiny, fragmented, but unmistakable." Nadia Kwan rubbed her temples. "Fragments? You mean it survived? Even a little?" Ivers nodded grimly. "Not just survived, adapted. Even after the disruptor, some of it remains, dormant perhaps, but waiting." Marcus Hale let out a low, humorless laugh. "Waiting. That is the understatement of the century. So we fight it once, think we won, and it hides like a rat in the wall until the next time we are careless." Elena's jaw tightened. "Then we do not give it a next time. We prepare. Every colony, every settlement, humanity must know what we faced. If it survived beneath Cartho's prime, it can surface anywhere." Nadia shook her head. "We have nothing to fight it with now. The disruptor is gone. If the hive rebuilds or mutates, there is no weapon strong enough to stop it again without killing everyone involved." Ivers leaned back, eyes dark. "Not everyone may survive this. We freed them, yes, but their minds are fractured. Even without the parasite, the memories of being enslaved, merged, controlled, that is trauma that lasts. Some may never be the same." Marcus scowled. "Some may never be human again, and yet you want to march into the next fight like it is a war of rifles and pulse weapons. The hive is smarter than any of us, Captain, smarter than humanity expects, and it has patience." Elena stared at the horizon again. "Patience can be countered with vigilance, Marcus, and determination. If humanity refuses to forget what we faced here, the parasite will not succeed again, not in silence." The next morning, signs of the hive's lingering influence began to manifest in subtle, insidious ways. Colonists who had been freed from the pods now whispered in low tones when they thought no one was listening. Groups began to fracture, some claiming that even in freedom, the hives will remain inside their peers. Fear spread like wildfire. One freed colonist accused another in the market square. "Do not get too close. I see it in your eyes. The hive, it is not gone from you." The accused shrank back, eyes wide with terror. "I am free. You are imagining it." The crowd gathered, murmuring suspicion. Fear fed on itself, and soon a scuffle broke out. Marcus Hale had to draw his weapon to keep the fighting from escalating. Elena moved swiftly, placing herself between the two colonists, raising her voice to silence the crowd. "This is exactly what it wants," she shouted. "Divide, fear, suspicion, you have all been freed. Do not let whispers of what might be inside one another become the chains the parasite could not forge itself." Some nodded, swallowing fear with difficulty. Others remained unconvinced, glances darting suspiciously between neighbors. Dr. Ivers knelt beside one trembling colonist. "The mind is fragile after what it endured. Memories of the hive's control are like ghosts. They linger, but they do not control you anymore. You are free." But even as he spoke, Elena felt the echo in the back of her mind, the whisper from her dream, the soft, broken voice of the parasite. "Hunger waits." By evening, the council of surviving colonists convened in the square. Elena, Marcus, Nadia, and Ivers attended, not as rulers but as guides. Their task was to rebuild trust, to restore a semblance of order after chaos. But even in open discussion, tension rippled. Freed colonists argued heatedly over leadership, suspicion, and the morality of what had occurred. Some accused the crew of overstepping, of forcing decisions that had led to unnecessary deaths. Others demanded harsher measures to prevent the parasite from ever rising again. "I saw it in their eyes," one colonist said, voice shaking. "Even now they are not fully free. You cannot be certain of anyone. Then do not act on suspicion," Elena replied firmly. "Act on what you know. We know the hive is gone from those you see before you. You see them breathing, standing, thinking. You see humans. That is your evidence." Marcus crossed his arms. "Belief alone will not stop fear. It will fester. If we do not act, the colony will tear itself apart faster than the hive ever could." Nadia added quietly, "We need to monitor, but discreetly, not to control, but to protect. Some residual traces may remain. We cannot ignore them. The parasite is patient, so must we be." The council debated late into the night. No resolution fully healed the wounds. Division remained, a scar almost as deep as the one the hive had carved beneath their feet. Elena returned to the ship alone afterward. She stared at the darkened forest, listening to the wind in the trees, trying to silence the whisper in her mind. Hunger waits. She closed her eyes. The echo seemed to pulse from the earth itself. It was not the full hive, not yet. But fragments of it survived, biding time, dormant, hidden. She exhaled slowly, reaching for the blade at her side. It had cut through the tendrils of the parasite, severed veins, and torn the cathedral of bodies apart. Yet she knew victory was temporary. The parasite's hunger had patience beyond human lifespans. Its influence might surface again here, on other colonies, across worlds humanity had not yet touched. Elena's gaze hardened. "Then we wait with patience too," she whispered. "And when it rises again, humanity will be ready." She turned back toward the settlement, where survivors lit fires and began the slow process of rebuilding. Faces bore exhaustion, grief, and lingering terror, but beneath it all, determination glimmered. Humanity endured, even in fragments, even in fear. And as dawn broke fully across Cartho's prime, she allowed herself a moment of hope. The hive had been defeated, the parasite wounded, humanity had survived. But the echo of hunger lingered, and with it, the knowledge that vigilance would be eternal. Weeks passed, and Cartho's prime began the slow, painful work of recovery. Fires had been extinguished, the wounded tended, the dead buried beneath the soil. Freed colonists wandered through streets cleared of debris, still haunted by the memories of the hive, yet slowly reclaiming the lives that had been stolen. Captain Elena Mayak walked among them, observing, listening, guiding. Her armor was repaired, her blade polished but scarred, a testament to the battles fought below and within the colony. Dr. Samuel Ivers moved among the colonists as well, performing checkups and mental evaluations. He worked tirelessly to ensure that each freed mind stabilized, counseling those plagued by nightmares of shared consciousness and forced acts of violence. Some listened. Others resisted, but all were alive, and that was the first victory. Nadia Kwan, her hands still stained from mechanical work, repaired instruments, and began to design a smaller, more stable monitoring device. It was not a weapon, she explained, but a way to detect residual parasite activity, a precaution against future outbreaks. We cannot rely on luck twice, she told Elena. Marcus Hale patrolled the perimeter, scanning the forests and foothills, ever alert. His face was hard, his stance taut. I do not trust the quiet, he muttered once, speaking as if to himself. The hive learned patience, so do we. At the center of the settlement, a council had formed, composed of freed colonists and the surviving crew. Its mission was simple: maintain order, monitor for lingering parasite traces, and begin rebuilding the colony while keeping vigilance against future threats. Freedom is not just survival, Elena told them in the first council meeting. It is the right to make choices. That is what the hive tried to steal from us. That is what we must protect. Even in fear, even in doubt, even when whispers tempt us to surrender our will. Some colonists nodded, their faces hardened by trauma yet brightened by resolve. Others shifted uneasily, still hearing echoes of hive whispers in the corners of their minds. It was clear that the parasite's influence, though broken, had left a mark that might never fully fade. Dr. Ivers addressed the group next. We have freed the minds enslaved beneath Cartho's prime. Most are recovering, but some will require long-term care. Memories of being one with the hive will haunt them. Be patient with one another. We have all been changed. We must help each other rebuild not just structures, but trust and the belief in ourselves. The words settled over the council like a fragile shield, a promise that humanity could endure if it faced its fears openly, rather than letting them fester in silence. Yet vigilance came at a cost. One evening, as Elena walked along the settlement's outer rim, she saw a figure crouched among the trees. The glow in the figure's eyes was faint, but unmistakable. She drew her blade slowly, approaching. "Show yourself," she commanded. The figure stood, hands raised in surrender. It was a colonist they had freed weeks before, a woman named Lyra. Her eyes were clear, her posture unthreatening, yet Elena felt a ripple of unease. "I thought I felt it again," Lyra whispered, voice trembling. "A whisper in my dreams, a shadow in the corner of my thoughts. I am free, but sometimes I am not." Elena lowered her blade. "You are free, Lyra, but the parasite leaves echoes. Fear, memories, residual influence. You must learn to live with it without letting it define you." Lyra nodded slowly. "How do you fight something that waits inside your own mind?" Elena met her gaze. "By remembering who you are. By choosing every day to act, to speak, to think for yourself. The hive cannot take what you will not surrender." The woman exhaled, relief mingled with lingering doubt, and stepped back into the settlement. In the days that followed, subtle signs reminded the crew that the parasite's reach had not entirely vanished. In some homes, freed colonists complained of fleeting images in their minds. Whispers, fleeting visions of the Cathedral of Bodies, flashes of other people's memories they could not account for. These were brief, disorienting, and yet always fading. Nadia Kwan's monitoring devices detected residual resonance, tiny threads scattered in soil and water, fragments of the hive's former network. Not enough to control, but enough to remind them that victory was provisional. Marcus Hale reported nightly patrols that showed no visible movement of new parasites, yet he remained restless. "Patience is a weapon," he muttered to Elena one night, "but vigilance is the shield we cannot put down." Elena nodded. "We survived, we rebuilt, but we do not forget. The parasite is patient, but so are we. If it ever rises again, humanity will be ready." Dr. Ivers joined them quietly, scanning the horizon. "The psychological recovery will take years. Some may never fully trust another human again, but that is not weakness, that is remembrance. We survived not because we forgot, but because we remembered what we fought for." Months passed. The colony began to thrive again. Children played in the fields, laughter returning though faint and careful. Crops were planted, shelters rebuilt, and life edged forward, a fragile but defiant assertion of humanity. Yet beneath the forest, the faint pulse of the hive's remnants lingered. Dormant roots, tiny veins of resilience, fragments of memory waiting. Hunger had not disappeared entirely. Elena walked through the forest's edge one evening, the sun casting long shadows. She paused, listening to the wind. For a moment she thought she heard a whisper, faint and teasing. Hunger waits. She exhaled, hand brushing her blade, not in fear but in readiness. Then we will wait with it, she whispered. We endure and we fight. Every day, every moment, humanity will not kneel. The colony of Carthos Prime had survived the parasite, freed the enslaved, and reclaimed their minds. Yet the echo of hunger reminded them that the universe still held threats beyond comprehension. And as humanity had proven before, when faced with the impossible, they endured with ingenuity, courage, and the stubborn, unyielding strength of choice. Even in the shadow of patience, even under the looming threat of unseen predators, humanity endured. And that was enough, for now.